vegetarian long time ago. It was in the 1970s, and back then there was a book published in 1971 called Diet for a Small Planet by Frances, I believe her last name is Moore, Moore, Lappe, Lappe, and that was almost like a Bible for new vegetarians, and it taught people how to do food combining and how to be a healthy vegetarian. That was in the day when there really were no vegetarians around, and I'd never heard the word vegan. I had no idea what that meant. But one of the most important things that I gained from that book was about the importance of food combining, in particular to have a balanced amount of all of your amino acids. Now, modern day, they actually say, that's not all that essential. You don't have to combine the foods all at the same time. You're still going to be absorbing the different amino acids throughout the day or the week or whatever. But as I mentioned, back in 1971, when that book was published, the thought was you must, with every meal, combine the proper amount of amino acids to replicate what is in meat. I was living in Mexico and for much of the time, and Mexico is a rice and beans culture, or a quesadilla culture, where you put beans in your quesadillas, and there are so many different vegetables that you can eat, usually with cheese, and then of course the corn tortillas. And all of those different products combined are the perfect full set of amino acids that your body needs to get all of the essential proteins. What I found fascinating is that cultures around the world have always been combining those foods correctly without the added meat. So a couple of examples I mentioned. In Mexico, you've got your rice and beans and you've got your corn tortillas. I've never eaten a flour tortilla. I will not eat a flour tortilla today. And I haven't eaten a flour tortilla for ages, but I'd never really seen flour tortillas until I moved to Texas. And to me, flour tortillas are not really authentic. And of course, most wheat today has minimal nutritional value, whereas the authentic corn tortillas, non-GMO corn, is very high in protein, and especially when combined with cheese or with beans or with rice. So again, those are all the perfect elements to combine to have protein. But in other parts of the world, you find similar things. My favorite is falafel or hummus, and traditionally in the Middle East, falafel and hummus are eaten with tahini, and tahini is ground sesame. Sesame is a seed, and garbanzos are a legume. When you combine the legume with the seed, you have complete protein. So that's one example of how in the Middle East, it was natural to combine the proteins without meat. One of the things that I enjoy about Indian food in India, not necessarily in the United States, but traditionally in the South and in the Hindu parts of India, it is a vegetarian culture. And dal is one of the most common dishes, which is made out of different kinds of lentils. There's another soup, which when I was in South India, every meal we were given sambar, S-A-M-B-A-R. And that is also a soup based out of lentils or lentil powder. The other thing that I love about India, since I don't eat wheat, is in India they make all different kinds of bread or bread type of foods with chickpea flour. So again, that is very highly nutritious. Another very common food from India is the dosa, D-O-S-A. Dosa traditionally is made again out of the besam chickpea flour, and oftentimes it's combined with rice flour. And plus they are combining it with many other things. So combined, you have those complete proteins. And in Nicaragua, what is to me the essential daily staple foods are gallo pinto. And I love gallo pinto, and to me, again, it's very easy to be vegan in Nicaragua because you can eat gallo pinto every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Gallo pinto is black beans and rice. Again, perfect protein. The typical Nicaraguan may add to that freshly made cheese, where they eat it on the side, and maybe they will have scrambled eggs with it. Gallo pinto is also a common dish in Costa Rica. And again, when I'm in Costa Rica, there's plenty of vegetarian and vegan restaurants in the larger cities, but I know I can always eat my gallo pinto, and that's perfect protein. If you go to Asia, you have the adzuki beans, and they often combine it with tofu and again rice. From an Ayurvedic perspective, which is the life science from India, some beans are better for you or easier to digest than others. As a certified yoga therapist, much of what I do is based on Ayurveda, and I teach people how to combine foods and what food is right for them. Mung beans are the easiest to digest and can be digested easily and are healthy for everyone, whereas other beans may be right for me and not right for you, or vice versa. And mung beans are a primary ingredient in a food called khichdi. Khichdi is kind of like gallo pinto. You can eat khichdi for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And khichdi is based off of mung beans, rice, and whatever vegetables and tons of spices you want to use. Because I avoid simple carbohydrates such as white rice, I make my khichdi with quinoa. And quinoa, if you don't know, it is a seed. It's from the Andes, and it is one of the highest sources of protein. It's a superfood. You can see that around the world there are many different ways to combine your food with beans to get that perfect protein. And I wanted to mention a few statistics from Cleveland Clinic about the value of beans. Cleveland Clinic says 1/2 cup of beans is equal to 1 ounce of meat in terms of the protein. However, one of the reasons why beans are so much healthier than meat is one, beans fill you up more because of the fiber. That prevents you from overeating, especially if you eat slowly and mindfully, which you always should. And beans lower the bad cholesterol, and beans lower the risk for heart disease and cancerous polyps, according to Cleveland Clinic. The other thing that I wanted to mention about the beans compared to meat is transit time. Most people think of transit time as how long is it going to take me to get from, MapQuest A to B, right? But what transit time means when you're talking about digestion is how long does it take for you to digest your food. So vegetarian and vegan diets, your transit time is very short. Heavy meat-based diets, your transit time is very long, and that is associated with digestive forms of cancer. And in fact, I have represented a cancer clinic in Miami, and I went to an oncology congreso in Quito, Ecuador, And the doctor that I was working with, who was the specialist, he said that, I don't remember if it was Ecuador or Colombia, has one of the highest rates of gastric types of cancer in the world. And according to him, his belief was because of all the fatty meats that was common in those diets. And Loma Linda is a community where there are a lot of Seventh-day Adventists. And Seventh-day Adventists traditionally are vegetarian. And Loma Linda is the only place in the United States where people tend to be centenarians. And that is one of the most interesting to me findings. And if you look at the other places, one of the other places I know where there are centenarians is in Japan, where they eat a lot of rice and vegetables and tofu. But again, Loma Linda, it's such an anomaly that in the United States, there's a community where people tend to live to be in their 100s. I find that fascinating, and if you're interested in that more, again, I believe that the book that talks about centenarians around the world is called The Blue Zone. But there are many research studies that have shown how the people that the vegetarian participants in the studies, in research studies from Loma Linda, all score higher than others when it comes to health. Add beans to your diet instead of meat. Ditch the meat. I ditch the dairy for a lot of reasons. And there are so many different ways that you can make those beans. You don't have to have beans and rice like my gallo pinto or khichdi. I make black bean brownies because I'm gluten-free and I'm low glycemic in terms of the diet that I follow. I follow a vegan, gluten-free, low glycemic diet. So I make my brownies with black beans instead of flour. And of course, the black beans make the brownies look so chocolatey. And yes, they do have chocolate. I only use 100% pure cacao. I would not buy, store-bought chocolate, because there are a lot of reasons why chocolate is not as good for you, but the main reason is that chocolate has so many additives. Sometimes it will have milk proteins or milk fats, and of course they tend to add loads of sugars. Pure cacao is very low in calories and very nutritious. How do you like eating your beans?